Welcome to another episode of Dawnversations. Today we have Philip. Welcome, Philip. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thank you, Dawn. It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, me too. So I before I hit record, I was telling Philip, like, I don't know what we're going to talk about because you do have a varied background and it's amazing. Like, good for you. Kudos. Some people just like graduate from college and they've got their one focus and they just focus on that until they retire and die. So kudos to you for taking different avenues and writing a book. I look up to authors so much. So, what inspired you to write a book?
There's a couple of things. Actually, I've written two books.
Okay. Well,
Um,
we're going to talk about
one
both.
led, yeah, one led to the other. But I think it started being asked to write a chapter for somebody else's book. So there's
Oh.
a lady who asked me, because of my experience and background in the tech industry and the games industry, which I've been working in for 20 years, she was like, Phil, you're an expert. Can you write a chapter for my book on this particular thing? So it was about how brands are getting involved, sponsorship angles that they are taking, and promoting their products and services to this particular audience. So, people who play games online, watch people playing games, the tournaments, and that sort of stuff. So that experience, I'd always been a writer. I used to write for magazines when I was growing up and had a monthly column and things like that. So the long form I find much easier. Also
Mhm.
because I just like to talk, so it goes from brain to page and away we go.
Right.
Um, but that experience of saying, okay, I need to be a bit more structured here, writing a chapter for this lady's book. That is one of the things that spurred me on. Is like, okay, so I've been through part of this process now. Why not? And then there are a couple of other things that happened in my life at the time. And we'll probably go into this in a bit more detail, but this was sort of 2021. So this was after the injury, which I'm sure we'll touch on. I started personal development in 2021. One of the first questions that I was asked was, what impact and contribution have you made? What's going to be said at your funeral?
Oh,
Which
wow.
was, yeah, so it was a big question. I was like, I don't actually know how to answer that. But that started to change my perspective, because then everything is like, well, what can I do? How can I use my skills and experience to support others? And so the first instance of doing that was supporting my partner. She's a teacher. She needed a lesson for her students. I knew that they all loved a particular video game. So I was like, why don't we create a lesson based on that game? She was like,
Mm.
not sure about that. I don't know if we can get away with that. I don't know what my colleagues would say, but we did it anyway. Sat down, worked through some ideas. 30 minutes later, she had a plan. She had some resources, took it into school the next day. And I got a text message saying they love it. They're hooked. They're quiet. They're on task. They're not disruptive. And
Yeah.
it's like, see, I knew it, because it's something that's relevant and interesting to them. So
Yeah.
that started the thought process going of, okay, maybe I can use my experience in the industry to support people. So I started creating math resources based on different games, sharing them with teachers, sharing them with parents. And I then started to write the book, because I created a way of looking at a video game, identifying key features in it, and knowing that I could then turn those into maths questions for the
Okay.
younger age group. So sort of 5 to 11 years old. In the UK, that's sort of primary level, I guess. US, I think it's elementary.
Yeah.
So it's okay, that sort of foundational maths. So I started this and having conversations with the parents and supporting them. And then the conversations with parents turned into, Phil, I love all this math stuff, but I've got an issue with screen time. How do I manage that? So I then started interviewing parents and child psychologists about strategies for managing screen time and online safety. And that then became the foundation of the first book. So the first book
Wow.
is called Watch Us Play, and it's split into two halves. So the first half is strategies for managing screen time for kids and online safety. Second half is about how to use maths to improve, how to use video games to improve their math skills. So I had that, created it, put it out there, got some great feedback, then started doing online training for parents around the things in the book, because I'd already written it. I had the
Yeah.
processes there, I'd had the feedback, I knew what worked.
Mhm.
So I started doing online training. And as I created some slides for a set of online training for parents, I did a 4-day challenge. So it's like, day one, I'm going to go through this. Day two, I'm going to go through this. Day three, I'm going to do something else. And I was writing the slides, and I created a slide about 12 things that impact parents and their ability to manage screen time that they don't know about.
Oh
One of
my
those was
gosh,
relationship.
interesting. Okay.
So a parent's relationship with technology impacts their child's relationship with technology. But most parents are like, nah, it's not important. But if a child sees that you're just on your phone scrolling all the time, they look at that and go, well, that's normal. Why can't I do that? And so there's these, I created these 12 things. Where do you use your device? Location. Are you sat on the sofa using it? Are you using it at the kitchen table? Oh, the
Mhm.
dining table when you're all eating, that influences your child. So I created these 12 things and I used them for the online training, but then I also looked and went, it's not just about screen time and online safety. That has impacts for all areas of life. And the more I looked at it, the more I realized it's like, actually, yeah, these are things that hold us back in all areas. There's a life model here. And that's what then spurred me on to write the second book, which is about the 12 chains that hold us back in life and how to break free of them. Because I recognized, looking at that slide in this PowerPoint presentation, some of these are things that I've had to work through in my own life, the things that I've overcome, the changes that I've made in my life. If I can recognize that for myself and that it's a model for life, I need to share this. I need to
Yeah.
support other people because I've been on that journey myself. I've overcome an injury. I've struggled to keep my business going. I've given up alcohol. I've then put myself through fear to write the first book and learn how to do it. And, all of those things that I've worked through in my own life, it's like, I can help people here. Here is another way where I can have impact and contribution. So I then wrote
Right.
the second book.
All those things that you mentioned take so much self-discipline. Quitting alcohol, writing a book, forcing yourself to really think about what you're gonna put pen to paper, what you're gonna say, editing, all that stuff is so much discipline. So that's fascinating. But, I don't know where I wanna go. I either wanna ask you about your injury or I wanna ask you about one of your I don't wanna do a spoiler because I know you want people to read the book, but can you give me just, like, one example of one of the chains that holds people back so that they can kinda get a taste of what the book is like?
Yeah, so I mentioned relationships was one of the boxes that I put on the slides that then became part of the set of
Mhm.
12. Relationships in the context of the book as a chain that holds us back, not all relationships are equal. Some of them are negative. That could be friends, could be family, could be business colleagues. And it's whether we take the time to identify those and then what we choose to do about it. So, to give you an example, I fired my biggest client for my business because every time the phone rang, I was filled with dread. What was the request going to be? It was not a positive relationship. So it
Mm.
impacted my business,
Right.
but I knew that was a change I needed to make. I needed to let go of this client because it was draining me. So, in the context of things that hold us back in life, sometimes it is those negative relationships. We need to be able to identify them and then say, okay, now that I know, what am I going to do? Spending less time with those people or in the same situations is one of the first things that we can do. So that is an example of one of the 12 chains within the book.
Gosh, that's so interesting, and it's difficult too for people to make that change, even if they know it's detrimental to their mental health or their physical well-being, knowing that every time that phone rings or the email pops up, it's like, ugh. It does take a lot of energy to deal with people like that. So that had to have
Yeah.
affected your pocketbook too, like, getting rid of one of your big clients, that had to have been a financial thing too, that made it difficult for you to
It did, but I had to weigh it up and go, okay, do I want to continue struggling through this, or do I want to be able to free myself up to see what else comes forward and presents itself to me? So yeah, there were challenges with that. Absolutely, on the financial side, I took a hit,
Mhm.
but in myself, I ended up feeling a lot better because I didn't have that constant drain.
Yeah.
So it's a trade off, and we have to make those decisions. So it was short-term discomfort financially versus short to long-term discomfort mentally and energetically. So it's like, yeah, I'm going to have to make a decision here. A decision is going to be made either way. Either I stick with it and suffer,
Right.
or I move away from it and see what happens.
Yeah. So what did you actually go to school for? Did you go to college?
I did. So I actually failed my first
Okay.
one. So I went to do computer graphics because so growing up, playing games with
Computers.
friends,
Yeah.
competing in tournaments, in the games industry. So I wanted to go into the industry and create all these fantastic worlds that I, had experienced as a player because they were engaging, they were entertaining. There was story there were characters, all those sorts of things. So I went to university, college, started on a course in my second year. So it was a 4-year course overall. In my second year, I failed the same module twice, and
Oh,
it was advanced maths. So it was, how to move things around on screen and do all the programming to support that and all the calculations. I was like, yeah, this is too advanced for me. And so the university came to me and said, yeah, you can't stay on this course now because you failed this twice. You're going to have to think of something different. So for my final year, I changed course to computer business, which set me on a very different path. Which, I'm grateful for now, the things that I've been able to do and the experiences that I've had. But yeah, life is like that sometimes. We may have a
yes.
plan, but it doesn't always work out.
That's exactly right, and I love that about life. I mean, at the time, it's like, "What am I doing? Where are things going?" But when you have the hindsight and you think, "Gosh, here I thought I was gonna be designing video games, but instead I'm helping people that design video games," or whatever, and it's like it all has its own, and you always end up where you're supposed to end up. I always was curious though, and this is not to be judgmental. I was always interested in why do people just watch other people play a video game? What is that so that you can learn tricks so that you can beat the game, or what is the point of doing that?
It's that and more. So some
Okay.
people will watch the games absolutely because it's like, I want to learn how to do something. So if we take a game, maybe it's a FIFA, which is a game that I worked on. It's like, okay, what are some of the play styles? What are some of the tips and the tricks that I can learn? Or if it's something like Minecraft. So a lot of the kids that my wife teaches, they watch YouTube videos because they want to learn how to build different types of buildings, different styles, all those sorts of things you can
Right.
learn by watching other people, whether it's a live stream or whether it's, just finding a video on YouTube. The stage after that then is because you have a full appreciation of the game, in the same way that when we watch sports, you can tell what's a good play when someone has performed above and
Mhm.
beyond. Whether it's a save, whether it's a shot, whether it's a goal or a strike, or hitting a home run or any of those sorts of things, depending
Right.
on the sport that you follow. Once you have built up enough of an appreciation, you can recognize when somebody has excelled. So you then watch for those instances. So that's the other end of the spectrum. This is where we have esports now of people competing in video game tournaments, as I used to do, now for lots of money. And you have those audiences because people, they want to support a team, they want to support that excellence, they want to watch people being able to demonstrate that ability.
Right. Well, and I guess it does eventually build a community if you're going to like tournaments and stuff like that. Because in my mind, I'm picturing people just in the dark in their basement playing these games and not socializing. They're ghost white because they never go outside. Like, I don't
Yeah, but
know
that's a
anything.
stereotype.
Yeah, right.
that
That's how
that
I
is the old
picture it.
stereotype. So here's a story. Okay, 2005, there was a world tour for a particular video game. Obviously, the industry has moved on a lot since then, but there was this world tour that was great. I think there were 10 city stops over the year going around the world. I was fortunate enough to go to some of those events. And yes, there was the audience side, but from the players side, again, you would build those relationships because you were going to new cities in new countries. You were competing against the same people. You would start to build those relationships, and there were times where it's like during the day we're competing against each other. Afterwards, we're going for a beer, we're going for some food together, we're going to play poker till 3 a.m., then go to bed and rinse and repeat for a couple of days while we're in the city. And then we'll get to the end of it and be like, see you next month in somewhere else around the world. So there's the stereotype, yes, of, people
Yeah.
locked in their bedroom, but it's moved a long way since then. Now, yes, you have 10,000 seater stadiums full of fans. You have the players doing gym routines and having nutritionists and psychologists because they are being classed in the same way as a professional athlete. So the industry has moved on a
Unbelievable.
lot from where it was.
And there's money to be made?
Yes,
That
there is a
blows my
competition.
mind. This is a world I know nothing about. So you are completely educating me right now. I had no idea.
So summer 24. So as we're actually talking right now, there is a competition going on. It's called the Esports World Cup. It's in Saudi Arabia, which has become a focal point for this sort of competitive side of gaming. $60 million is on offer across a couple of different game tournaments. So there's a selection of games being played, teams competing from around the world. They are all vying for a share of $60 million.
I I can't even believe this. Like, so you have sponsors? Do you have like, does Coca-Cola want to
Yep.
sponsor some of these kids that are?
MasterCard do, Coca-Cola do, BMW do,
Oh
Mercedes have.
my.
A lot of the big brands are involved because they see it as a way to attract that audience, 35 and under.
Okay, so yeah, are you still in that world? Or do you
I am
still
moving out of
think,
that world because I am now have a different path. Since the injury, personal development journey, writing the books, I am
okay,
moving out of that world. But
okay.
that's the world that I've been in since the age of 16.
Oh my gosh. I had no idea. I had no idea that money could be made. This is crazy to me. I mean, in a good way.
But
No offense to
but it
anybody that
is.
games. Like, I just
But this
picture
is
Mortal
where
Kombat or Dungeons and Dragons. And
absolutely those games are played. But this
right.
is where the kids are now going to their parents saying, I want to be a content creator or I want to be a professional gamer because yes, it's tough, much like trying to get a sports scholarship or get into a draft.
Yeah.
It is possible. It's tough, but it is possible to build a business and build a career doing those things,
Yeah. So
playing games or creating content.
were you a big name in all of that? I mean, you could lie to me. I would never. But I mean,
So
did people were they
um,
like, "Oh, yeah, Philip Wright, like, yeah, he was a big gamer. He did really well. He was sponsored."
So not as a player, I only made it semi-pro, but I was headhunted to manage one of the world's best teams. So, within that sphere, I was reasonably well recognized. I used to run my own events as well when I was younger.
Mm.
So in the UK, yes, there was a community that I was heavily involved with, and players would recognize me, the teams would recognize me because I was setting up the events and I was managing one of the world's top teams.
Yeah.
I did also have the opportunity to manage the UK national team at one point for one of the international
Wow.
competitions. So yes, within that space, I was at a reasonable level.
Was that like the Olympics of gaming? The national tournament type thing?
So in those days, there were the equivalents of
Okay.
you had physical versions and you had online versions. So I was fortunate enough to support and manage the national team for some of the online versions. Didn't quite carry the same prestige as some of the physical versions where you
Mhm.
get the teams together. But again, it was a great experience of, okay, how are we, much like a national manager, it's like, who am I picking for the squad? How are we going to work together? What's the
Right.
strategy we're going to use? We're going to go into this competition representing the nation. So yeah, at that time, I think what was probably 2021 at the time. Yeah, again, great experience to say, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go to your injury if you don't mind talking about it. What
Mm-hmm.
happened? What happened to you?
I was playing rugby. So it's a game sport that I've played from an early age. And
Mhm.
it was the last play of the game. We'd already lost really badly, but I was still committed to doing my job. So the role that I had was almost like the last line of defense. So my position, yeah, playing fullback. So yeah, you normally have your line of players if you're in defense, and you then almost like a sweeper type role. So stood a bit further back. If anybody breaks through the line or if they kick over the top, you're there meant to try and deal with the situation. So one of the opposing players broke through the line. So it's like there's only me standing between him and him scoring. So I, lined myself up trying to make the tackle and stop him. And I got my head on the wrong side. Normally, when you make a tackle, you're meant to wrap your arms around and you're meant to get your head nicely cushioned on their bum.
Okay.
That's where all the padding is. I didn't. I got in the wrong position. And so his thigh went straight into my face, running at full speed. So it was like, yeah, out for the counts on the grass. Looking up at the sky going, ow, that hurt. He was also out. He was laid out on the ground because of the force of the impact. I then couldn't move my head and neck and stumbled off the pitch and drove home 40 minutes unable to move my neck, which you would probably say is a very silly idea, but I was like, well, that's all I can do right now. Then went and got physio. So the club was fortunate to have a physio on the team that we could go and visit for free. And I just thought, all this stiffness, it's like I've done a really tough gym session. Because, if you go to the gym and you do weights, they contract because, you're tearing them, they're growing, they're repairing. I just thought, that's the sort of thing that I've done. If I give this a little bit of time, it will ease off.
Yeah.
And then 7 weeks later, from 7 weeks of physio, the physio's like, it's not really changing here. You've been using your soft collar. So I went and bought a soft collar brace for my neck and I slept in that, but all the muscles and things hadn't eased off. I could still hardly move my head and turn it and move my neck. He was like, go and get some scans. So I did. And then, consultant sat me down. He was like, yeah, it's broken. We suggest surgery, plates and screws. It's going to probably be about 3 to 6 hours worth of surgery. We'll go in from the front, put a plate and screws in, and then we'll sew that up. We'll turn you over. We'll go in through the back, make sure that everything's in place. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I also couldn't afford it at the time. So I was like, okay, thanks for that information. I'll see you later. So I walked out and left it. And I was like, I'm going to put faith in my body to heal. So I've had other injuries from rugby. I broke my ankle playing rugby just before my 21st birthday. Surgery on that was optional. So I was like, no, I'll leave it. We'll see what happens. Just put a cast on it. That's fine. I get some niggles every now and again, but I knew my body had already gone through that process of healing in the past. So I was like, it can. I know it can. Let's see what happens. So, that was January 2020. So by the time I had the physio and the scans, we're now into March.
Which
also then meant everything was shutting down. So it was like, great. So not only have I got to try and deal with my neck, the hospitals were shutting down anyway. So I was like, yeah, I'm not getting the surgery. We'll just see what happens. So yeah, that was the first start of a change of direction for me, because I had to cope with whatever happened with my neck. And then I had to cope with the lockdowns, which were quite different here in Dubai compared with a lot of places, because there were nightly curfews. They would spray the streets. We had to go and get, apply for passes to go out and get groceries. And we could only do that, once or twice a week. Everybody was working from home. So yeah, quite different in that respect.
Wow.
And obviously my business got hit like a lot of people. Couldn't do any of the events that were planned. People tightened their marketing budgets. So I had that double whammy of, I'm trying to see what happens with my neck and I'm fighting to keep my business going. And that's where, I managed to survive and get through that. And why I then started that personal development journey in sort of spring 2021, as we came out of lockdowns, because it's like, things need to change. I need to do things differently. This is not working for me. The business has struggled. This whole structure, I need to do things differently. So that's what led to the start of the personal development journey. And then from that, that big question of impact and contribution, what's going to be said at your funeral, started the thinking of, okay, how can I use my skills and experience?
Yeah. Who was it that asked you that about the funeral?
So it was part of a course. So I saw a YouTube video for a personal development course and was like, what have I got to lose? So I clicked it and bought it and took it. And so that was from a gentleman called Tim Han. Again, as a guy in the UK, but was originally from South Korea, moved over to the UK as a as a young boy, had some challenges, falling in with the wrong groups, drugs, alcohol, all those sorts of things until, again, he hit a point of, I need to make some changes. He
Mhm.
saw his mum break down, dealing with certain situations and working different jobs, all that sort of stuff.
Right.
So to see that advert, it's like, you've been through some adversity as well. Okay, let's see what you've got to say. I've got nothing to lose. My situation's already crap. So, I went through and that's where in the course, it was one of the questions that was asked. I was like, that's not quite what I was expecting, but it's a fair question.
Right.
Maybe again, that is the kick that I need to start thinking differently.
Yeah, isn't that amazing when those impactful moments happen just out of the clear blue? You don't expect them. So have you gotten where you wanna be yet, or you still feel like you're still going?
I'm still going. I've been an entrepreneur since the age of 16. So I will keep going and just keep building and see what happens. There are some definite changes that I've made, yes. So I'm in the process of moving away from the games industry. Been doing that for 20 years.
That's a big deal to
It
move
is a
away
big
from
deal. And
something
everybody's
that you've
like,
known. Yeah, that's like a
yeah, why,
divorce.
why are you doing that? You've got all that experience and skills. And it's like, yeah, but the way that I built the business, it was project based. It was feast and famine. It was writing responses to RFPs and, 1,000 pitches that lead nowhere. It's just like, I don't need that anymore. There's
Yeah.
more to this. There's more to what I have to offer than that. And if I
Mhm.
want to make an impact, it's not doing those things. I need to do things differently. So I've completely redesigned the business. I've now moved into that coaching contribution space. Yes, I have the book. I have video course version of that as well. And I'm also now supporting female coaches with all of their tech stuff because that's the background and experience that I have. So it's sales funnels, it's email automations, it's the taking on the heavy lifting of the tech so that
Okay.
they can have impact. Because if you're a coach, you're doing it for a couple of reasons, really. One, you want that freedom and that flexibility and trying to
Mhm.
generate your own income.
Mhm.
You probably want to do it for impact as well. So for me, it's like, okay, how can I have impact? Well, I can have direct impact through my book because that can support people and
Mhm.
help them change their lives for the better. And if I support other people who want to have impact, well, then in my mind, that enables me to have indirect impact. Okay, that makes sense. As I was thinking about these things and just whirring around in my
Right.
head. So it's like, right, let's use those skills and experience to support female coaches. So that's what I'm now doing. I'm doing the tech stuff for them. So all they have to think about is how do I attract people? How do I deliver my coaching services to have that impact?
That's amazing how it's come full circle like that. So you're basically helping them to streamline their process of whatever information, whether they're a speaker or an author or whatever, they want their message out there. You're helping them to streamline it so that their message can get out there to the people they're trying to get it to. Is that right?
Parts of that, yeah, parts of it, absolutely. And then part of it is the back end stuff. So you've probably seen it online. Fill in a form, get a free guide, or
Yeah.
sign up for this, or I'm doing a 4-day challenge or a virtual event. So
Right.
it's like, okay, well, great, you get people coming to you and they're interested and they want your stuff. Well, then what do you do with them? How do you get them to say yes to something that's paid? How do you build that relationship with them? So it's about putting those systems in place to say, how can we build this in a way where you as a coach don't have to spend a million hours writing individual emails to people to help them understand who you are, what it is that you do, the offering that you have, how you can help, all of that
Right.
sort of stuff. So it's putting those systems and processes in place. So I mentioned it, as a coach, all they have to worry about is delivering a great service and supporting the clients that they have and doing the stuff that will bring those people to them, whether it is creating reels, being a guest on
Mhm.
podcasts, going and speaking at live events. That is for them to decide what they feel comfortable with. All of the system stuff in the back end, we can build all of that. We can manage all of that. We can put that on autopilot.
I love that because I mean, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not trying to make money or anything like that personally. And I'm not against anybody that does. That's aside. Anyway, my point is that I can do the talking part, but when it comes to doing anything, I can do the editing stuff. But it's like there's people like you that use your pros, the things that you're good at. I'll do the things that I'm good at, but if we can make a good little Companionship. That's awesome. That's perfect. Tell me what you think about AI.
Ah, AI. Yeah, it's an interesting topic. As a tool and a support, absolutely, it has value. For me, just the way that I have seen the world change, I've always been involved in technology. I've been
Mhm.
in the online space since 2001. So again, I've seen lots of changes there. I've seen changes in tech and the games industry. I don't think it will take over. It will make life easier, absolutely, as a support and as a tool. And if we keep it framed that way, I think that's where we can take the most from it. We're having a conversation now. Will AI ever be able to replace this type of conversation? The
Right.
energy, the ability to bounce off each other and understand the nuances and all those sorts of things. I think that's a long way off yet. If we
Yeah.
look at the AI models that are here currently, it's about ingesting loads of data. And okay, yes,
Right.
we as humans process that in our own way based on our own experiences.
Mhm.
But that human element, I don't think we will ever be able to replace.
Yeah, it can't be replicated by anybody, not a human experience, not feelings. I think AI is kinda cool, actually. It's interesting to see it develop. I'm sure it's gonna expand quickly. I mean, just
Mm.
Google alone, just a search engine where you can find out the weirdest things or normal things, like, it's all
Yeah,
there.
fall down those rabbit holes, and suddenly 3 hours later, it's like, oh, I didn't realize any of this.
Well, and that you don't know how much of it is actually accurate. So you still need
Mm.
experts. You still need real people that are experts in certain fields. You can't go by exactly what you read on the internet all the time. I feel like we're always going to need people. I think it's fascinating, and I know I'm in lots of groups where podcasting groups where people freak out about it and they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's cheating or it's not." And I'm like, "No, I think it's kind of handy, like, for show notes, if I just say, 'I have a guest, they do this, can you help me write a little summary?'" And when it spits it all out, I go through and I read it, I'm like, "Man, that sounds great. That saved me
Mm.
20 minutes." I don't see the harm in it. It's not writing my questions, it's not writing my feelings, it's just helping me. It's an aid, it's like an assistant, in my mind.
Exactly that. Yeah, in the same way that we have tools like Grammarly, checking
Mhm.
everything that you've written for punctuation and grammatical errors and all those things. It's a tool. It can help you refine what it is that you're doing, save some time, but I don't think it will replace everything that we are doing because yes, some things still need that human touch.
Right, right. So what's next for you? Do you think you're gonna write another book?
I have ideas, yes. So it's a
I'm
case of
sure.
when it makes sense to do that. I'm on a journey now, so I have this book, which is a core thing for me because of the message that it carries. So some of the other topics, maybe about views on productivity, time management, things like that, expanding upon that creativity. I wrote this book in 60 days, give or take, because I had the
Whoa.
idea, but I then
Right.
also booked out the time and went to coffee shops and sat down, knew the process that worked for me. So putting some music on and my headphones, blocking all the audio
Mhm.
cues out, just sitting and typing, knowing the structure, knowing my style,
Right.
creativity. That's how I work best. That's how I've come up with all the different ideas for the trainings, the models, the frameworks, all that sort of stuff. Handwritten notes in a coffee shop with music on. So again, that's a topic that I want to expand on. Say, find the thing that helps you be creative. Is it the place? Is it the person? Is it the type of music? That's potentially a topic for a book. So yeah, there are things that I want to explore and potentially write about again to support people.
Right.
But right now, there's obviously the core message for the book that I have at the moment. So uncover those chains, break free of them so that you can move forward.
Right. And so tell everyone and me, who is the book for? Who is the audience? Who are you writing it to?
It was written partially for me.
Mhm.
Okay. And
Yep.
I say that because the way that I've structured it there are exercises as you go through the book.
Mm-hmm.
So I used it as a support tool for myself to say, you've recognized this as a chain. Now do the work, do the exercise, uncover it, and then you know what you've got as a reference point to start breaking free. So, we talked about the relationships one. The
Mm-hmm.
exercises, write down all the relationships and score them on a scale of 1 to 10. Anybody
Mm-hmm.
who's a 6 or less, maybe it's time to spend less time with them. It's a negative
Interesting.
relationship. So it's like, I wrote it for myself because it's also a reminder and a prompt to say, maybe you do need to make some changes in some of these areas. Some of you've already made changes. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's some other things. So that, was first and foremost, but that automatically, I get in my head, anybody who's feeling stuck or frustrated knows that they want more from life, has a vision for what they want, but is finding it a struggle to get there. There's resistance, or, just doesn't feel like things are working for them.
Okay.
It's for them, because
Okay.
it may be that there's one of those chains that they can identify and be like, that's it. That's the one thing. I can now understand it. I can see it. There's a guide here for what I can start doing to break free. So one of the final exercises is a freedom tracker, which I've also turned into a separate journal. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
just keep a log and a progress of the things you want to do more of. So that may be activities like, I need to be consistent with making a post on social media. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I need to be more consistent of going to the gym or eating healthy. But then there's also a record of what are the things I want to do less of, the people I want to see less of, because they drain my energy. So just keeping the records to say, how am I progressing in these areas? Because if we're consistent,
Mm-hmm.
that's when things change. So there's a sort of a mini phrase that I created and wrote into the book, and it's based on the word freedom. Freedom is what it's all about. It's my highest level of
Mm-hmm.
value. It's why I've been an entrepreneur for so long. And it's focused repetition enables experiences, desires, opportunities, and money. So each of the letters of the word freedom is then used as part of that phrase. So it's about that consistency. It's about the repetition. If we want to make changes, there are going to be things that we need to do. Me giving up alcohol, it was a decision, but I still have to say no every time.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to go to the gym and get into shape, I have to be consistent. Going once isn't going to make a change.
Right.
So it's about uncovering those chains and then saying, okay, what am I going to do to break free of them? How am I going to do that consistently so that
Mm-hmm.
I don't fall back into those bad habits?
Right.
And so that's where I take people through those exercises, and why it's for people who currently feel stuck and frustrated. They may have tried other things. All I'm saying is, give it a go. Something different. It's worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
It might not work for you, but that's fine. We each find things that do and do not work for us because we're all unique.
Right, right. And I love that too, because whenever you see something and you read it and it does pertain to you and you feel like you're alone in it, and then you read it and you're like, oh, thank God. I thought I was the only one that felt like that or had that block. Or so that always makes me feel good whenever I read anything like that. One
Yeah.
more thing real quick, and then I'll let you go back to your life. What made you decide to quit alcohol?
I was tired of the 2-day hangovers
Yeah.
because I looked at it, I was like, well, that's now wasted time. I can't function properly if I've had too much. I don't like the feeling of not being in control. And
Mhm.
again, that's a personal thing for me of,
Sure, sure.
to an extent, yes, I am a control freak. I try and control what I can. But yeah, we just got to that point. It's like, I'm already making changes in other areas. And I asked the question, what are the things that are not serving me, that are not,
Mm.
an additive in terms of where I want to go, what it is that I want to do. And so alcohol was one of those things. It's like, yeah, if I drink too much, I know I'm going to feel crap for 2 days. That
Yeah.
doesn't help me. There's no point in that. So not only am I feeling crap for 2 days, that's also then a waste of money. Does it make sense to continue with that? No, maybe it's time for a change. So yeah, I made the decision, and that was 2 years ago.
Good for you. Yeah, I in September, I'll be sober for a year, and I was a big drinker. And I can be around it, and it doesn't bother me at all. I don't care. I'm like, "Hey, have at it. I've done my time."
Yeah,
More than
well, that's the same.
enough.
So over here in Dubai, Dubai is famous for the brunches. So a brunch is sort of 4 hours, all you can eat, all you can drink in the afternoon.
Oh,
And
wow.
then you can do a drunch, which is like another 3 hours, pay an amount, or you can drink. And then you can potentially just carry on and go to a club afterwards, and you've done from like 12 noon till 4 a.m. And you're like, that was a heavy slog. And that's why you
That's a
then
full
can't do
day.
anything for 2 days. Yeah.
Drunch. That's funny. I've never even heard that term before. That's funny. Drunch.
Yeah.
Well, Philip, I have enjoyed this conversation way more than I thought. I could learn so much. Anybody that is a gamer, if you happen to be listening, I apologize for my naive ways and not knowing anything about it. That was so interesting. That was really good. But anyway, I love the idea of your book. It sounds like it could help just about anybody of any age at any point in their life. But if you're feeling blocked, hold up your book if you would for me so that people can see it that are watching. There you go. Finally find freedom. Love it. Philip, thank you so very much. Tell people where they can find you and so that if they want to pursue you or get any of your coaching.
Yeah. So I'm most active on LinkedIn and Facebook. So you just search for my name on there. I should come up. My profile photo is me wearing a nice bright blue jacket. And then if anybody wants to, yes, the book is available on Amazon, but I've also recorded a free 3 episode mini podcast. So if you're listening to this, it's like, I like the audio. That's the way that I consume content. So that is available for free, and they can go and just sign up for that, and it will give them access to those 3 episodes. And that's
Okay.
available at 3lifesecrets.com. So it's the number 3 and then the words lifesecrets.com.
Okay, and I'll make sure that's in the show notes, and I wanna listen to that. That sounds really interesting. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's nighttime there, so I don't know if you're an early bird, but, thank you for taking up some of your evening to spend with me. I appreciate it, and I will be in touch for sure.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you, Dawn.
All right.
Amazing conversation. I love this energy. I love these conversations. It's great to connect with people.
Oh, yeah, no, I think it's phenomenal too. All right, I'll be in touch. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.